What's going on, RotoBallers? We are back for episode 4 of the PGA RotoBaller show, brought to you by RotoBaller, RotoBaller PGA. We've got my main man, Spence Aguiar, aka at T of Sports, sitting alongside me as always. We've got the Farmers Insurance Open. We've got a short period of time to deal with all this stuff. We don't have data available to us. It is straight up chaos, Spencer. All things considered, what's cracking?
I mean, isn't that fitting, Byron? Like the quickest turnaround of the entire year, the data just goes haywire across the board on whether it's the PGA Tour website or over on Fantasy National, wherever you really want to look right now. It's just, it's a disaster.
It's maniac season right now. So we're going to just be flying by the seat of our pants for the most part when we need to. And I'm looking forward to that. I think it's going to be a fun show. We're going to kind of do a little less nerdiness that we typically get up to and kind of just do a bit more Spencer and Byron or maniac season, like we've said, and just kind of see how it goes. So as we've spoken about, we've got the two different courses over here at Torrey Pines North and South. One drastically different, one not, compared to the other. One way easier, one not. I've got a few stats here for you real quick before I jump over to you. So there has never been a 62 or a 63 on the South course. There have been 9 since 2017 on the North course. So this is just some interesting stuff. So I'm kind of curious as to how you're going to approach guys going off the North versus the South and vice versa. I also did some tinkering to see past winners. How have they done on the North course versus the South course? Spoiler alert, there's no real trend. It's whatever. It's only one round of golf. Some guys have typically gained a little bit. Some guys have gained a lot. That's where they did the majority of their scoring. So it's kind of an interesting situation, but there have been multiple instances of 80s. There's only been 2 81s on the North easier course. There's been 10 81s, 2 82s, 6 83s, 2 85s, and 1 87. Guys have been shooting 87. So right off the top rope, Spencer, give me a golfer that's going to shoot in the 80s going into this week around the South course as being a complete gauntlet. If you don't have your stuff together, tell me who's going to shoot in the 80s and why.
I mean, I feel like as much as I like this player and I hit a top 20 on him last week, I mean, I'm scrolling through my model right now trying to find implosion potential. I don't know, Keith Mitchell, you look at a golfer like him, he's missed the cut 4 straight times, and he has burned me more than probably anybody in the entire space with these random rounds where he can't make putts. And I think you brought up a really good point here when looking between the North and the South, because when you look at last week's tournament, you just had, I mean, for the most part, even the stadium course, the PGA West Stadium course that was being played, it's still an easy venue at the end of the day. Like, it's 3 easy tracks that everybody was able to make birdies on. It's how you end up getting a 20-year-old amateur who shoots 29 under par to win a golf tournament. It's no different than really what happened with Davis Thompson last year, to where he almost wins the golf tournament. Like, weird things happen in those events. And I think when you get these split course rotations, sometimes it's just try to find the simplistic approach between the 2 venues and go about it that way. I do think for this venue or for this tournament, though, there's a little bit of a difference there based off of the reason that you just talked about, with the North being the easier venue to score from. When you look historically, the winning scores, I mean, we'll just use the last handful of years. We'll throw out the rows here. It's going to be probably around 13 to 15 under par. All of the last 5 years, the person who has gone out and won the tournament on the North has shot somewhere between 4 under to 9 under. That South is a lot more difficult. I know you only get 25% of your rounds on the North, but I do think you have to make the most of it. It's your birdie opportunities that you're going to get. It's bent grass greens out there. It's a slower surface. There's going to be a lot more of those mid irons in hand. 7 of the holes are going to feature 20% plus birdie or better percentage. I think if you don't score on the North, you end up losing the golf tournament from the first or second day. So that's hard when trying to calculate a model. And when we already have stats that have gone haywire on us, there's a problem on the back end of it. But I did try to build it out for both courses. And, I do think it adds an interesting perspective if you can find the golfer who's going to go low on the North.
Absolutely. And, the guys that I looked at that didn't play exceptionally well still gained strokes. They didn't go like 5 strokes gained. They just gained like 1 or 2. It wasn't too crazy. You can't go backwards on that course unless you're Tony Finau kind of thing. So That was tilting as heck last year. I think he lost 8 strokes putting or something ridiculous in round 2 or 3. I was looking at the stuff, and then he went and shot a 64 the following day. Like, just completely just flipped the script. But you mentioned Nick Dunlap, who absolutely ruined everybody's betting card last week. Feels like last year, and it's only Monday. But he's new. He's going to be new on the PGA Tour. And if you are not a current RotoBaller subscriber or premium package member, use code NEW for 30% off. 30% off, friends. We do the code TEOFF. We do the code MANIAC for 10. We are rocking and rolling with NEW for 30. And 30 means you're paying $17.40 a month for everything RotoBaller can provide you. You're getting the Discord. You're getting all our premium tools. You are getting Spencer's articles. You're getting all these picks. You're getting all my picks. You're getting all my articles. You're getting all my models. You're getting all Spencer's models. You're getting Joe Nicety's premium stuff. You're getting Joe Idoni's premium stuff for $17.40. That's like half a unit for some people, quarter of a unit. Like, it's a pretty affordable price if you look at industry standards. And I cannot stress it enough. It's going to be a limited time offer for 30%. And it's a deal that I think you simply can't refuse if you've been on the fence about being a RotoBaller member. So we want you on the team, and we are giving you guys a great opportunity to get in now using code NEW for 30% off. So just get that out the way there. But I feel like it's really important to know, because 30% is a lot better than 10%, right? So let's take a peek at some guys, Spence, going into the week here. And I'll try and find someone who's got 30%. And Sangja Im, currently over 2023, had a 31% top 10 rate. If you take a look at Max Homa, he had a 51% top 10 rate. We've got some seriously interesting names at the top of the board, yeah? And we've got some really good course history, but we've also got some guys that have got really good course history entering the week with some sketchy 10% off discount rates with their putting, with their approach game. There's guys that are going to have to rely on getting back into this course's DNA a little bit to get their game back. And I'm kind of curious as to what you're thinking with the top of the board here. Let's speak about the 4 top dudes, all 11 to 1 and south. I'm really curious as to how you're approaching them, and whether or not you would like to bet one of them, or if you were to bet one of them, if I made to force you to bet one, which one would you go with?
I mean, I don't like the price on Xander. I kind of entered the week thinking that if you could give me one of those prototypical, I always said if I didn't get 20 to 1 plus and I wanted like the plus of that 20 on Xander to make a bet on him. And now all of a sudden we're in this like 9 to 10 to 1 range. I can't get there on that price. Cantlay is too volatile for me at this moment. I see the upside in my model. Like, you can maybe consider him for GPP contest, depending on where he comes in ownership wise there, because he looks to be the forgotten commodity at this point. But he is going to be the most volatile of the group. I'm never really a Colin Morikawa guy. Like, I would say he's probably the least likely person for me to actually win this golf tournament. My model likes him this week. I don't want to undersell his chances here. The proximity numbers are going to look great. He's inside the top 10 of multiple iterations of my model of the statistics that I cared about this week. And I think Homa is the deserving defending champion of this tournament, and he's in this price range for a reason. But I'm not going to get there on any of those players. I kind of agree with you. We don't have a Scotty Scheffler in the field this week. I think that the board was very juiced at the top here to where I kind of would rather just take some long shots down the board. And that's kind of one of the things too with like this randomness of the stats with the way that my model was built this week. Like, it kind of liked all these players to begin with that were these long shots, but I'm not looking to get overly invested into this tournament. I know that's the boring answer to give. And I think a lot of shows and a lot of things that you listen to will tell you this is a very predictive course, like year after year. Well, I mean, maybe it is, because I understand on the South, you need to be able to have distance. You need to be able to scramble. You have to have long iron proximity that you can bring to the mix. But I also have never won at this golf tournament before since 2017. And I think that just goes with the randomness of where the North and the South brings into it. So I'm going to be very cautious this week.
Okay.
I'm just going to take my shots down the board. I will try to find a few matchups to get my edge. And I don't want to get as invested as I have in years past, because I look through all my cards. I mean, it's almost Tony Finau every single year, and Tony Finau never wins the golf tournament.
Oh, dude, I'm right there with you. I had him last year for like one of the first times I really got behind Tony Finau. And that's why I know how many strokes he lost putting, because it was so significant to me, right? So I just want to mention some stuff about Max Homa. And the reason he's the defending champ is he averaged 2.8 strokes on approach in his 3 rounds on the South course, okay? If you take his, let me just double check here real quick. If you take Max Homa, he's got 112 rounds or tournaments in my database here. If you take his 11th and 10th best strokes gain average and add them together, they still less than the 2.8 he gained when he won this tournament. That's his 10th and 11th best out of 112 events. Like, that's his top 10 ceiling, and it's double that. So he had an absolute career day. He was 0.8 strokes per round better than his second best career average, around Arnold Palmer Invitationals shortly thereafter at Bay Hill. So he is not putting well right now. He's not hitting his irons nearly as well as he has been. And it just, with this kind of a course history, obviously the defending champ, it really concerns me, right? So we're going to kind of mix and match a little bit of DFS in at the same time, because I feel like at 10-1, he's going to be an optimizer darling. I feel like out of those 4, it typically will like the salary savings, and he's the defending champ, and. But I don't see a repeat performance like that. And I know I'm going to be saying this, and we come out with hot takes. We said Shane Lowry was one of the worst plays ever. He holed out on the final hole for eagle and still missed the cut. Like he missed the green. It shot like out of like a sprinkler head thing and went in the hole for an eagle hole out, and he still missed the freaking cut. So we know what we're talking about when we know who's not the right fit. But now who is a bit of a different situation. It could be Nick Dunlap. It could be anybody. But yes, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that Shane Lowry situation was something else, because I had a Jason Day bet against him and I didn't see where Jason Day was at that moment. And I updated my phone and all of a sudden I saw Lowry had to hold out. And I'm like, oh no, this is going to be one of those classic Jason Day losses that I'm about to take. But Day clutched up, ended up getting the win. So all worked out well there.
Yeah, baby. That was, Jay Day, I think he's going to be interesting. Yeah, we'll talk to him shortly. But give me your biggest fade in this top range here. We'll call it the 10K. We'll leave Sungjae out, go Colin, Max, Patrick Cantley, and Xander.
Markets will agree with you that I've seen so far. Homa seems to be an underdog to every single person that I've seen so far. I would like to see where the Cantlay ownership comes in, I guess. Like, if he ends up approaching 12+%, I might be out on him completely at that percentage. But if he ends up entering at this sub 10% that we see right now, I think he's a fine shot to take. So yeah. I know that that's a very not giving an answer here. It's really tough. I don't know if you've seen my model this week, Byron. If you look at, let's just say, I guess it would be Justin Rosen up. So from 8,300 and up, outside of Harris English, that my model for whatever reason is a little bit lower on. It's like the top 18 of my model are those players there. So I don't think there's that many inconsistencies with the pricing, which is what's making this difficult. And that's kind of the answer that I always give at the Farmers, because you can build your model a certain way and then the ownership comes in that same direction. Like everybody's making the same picks. I think you're going to have to be a little gross with some of these plays here. And you're going to have to play the ownership game and kind of close your eyes and hope for the best. I mean, I'm not saying to play the guy that's completely off the board there, but like an Adrian Moronk all of a sudden, who is 21st for me, if he's going to come in at sub 5%, those are the kind of routes that I'm trying to take to get different. I know I'm jumping all the way down the board, but
no, it's all good. We can move on right down there. We can kind of do a little bit of everything today, because it's a really interesting event. Like I've said, the course history and recent form, which if you were to guess or not guess, say, which one would you go with? Course history or recent form entering this week? If you were only allowed to make one of them in your model.
I'm only going to give this answer because we haven't had enough tournaments. I would say course history. If you threw this into the middle of the schedule, I would probably flip that answer.
Okay, interesting. So, but this week, course history, I would agree too. I've got it ramped up. It's almost, in that second tier underneath Augusta and just underneath the Sony, which is pretty predictive in general correlations from past events. So Ian over there said that Max Homa gained over 7 shots ball striking at Kapalua. Yeah. And the putter just left him, right? So I don't know. Like Max just seems to struggle. And something that I also find fascinating on a course like this is Max Homa's par 5 scoring. If you take a look at what he gets up to on the par 5s, he's not really as elite as these other guys. He's 23rd in par 5 scoring. When you take a look at Xander, Cantley, Colin, Sungjae, they're all inside the top 10 for me in par 5 scoring. And it's weird. Like Max makes random bogeys on par 5s. It doesn't make sense to me why he plays par 3s. He leads the tour, I think, in par 3 scoring, but the par 5s, he's not. So it's almost like, I don't know exactly what's going on in that department, but I think if I were to have a fade this week, it's going to be Max Homa. And I'm a renowned Max Homa anti-whisperer. Whenever I'm on him, he never wins. And whenever I'm off him, he beats Keegan Bradley when I'm on Keegan Bradley. So guess what? I'm on Keegan Bradley this week again. So hold on, boys. We're going for a ride. It's going to be a fun one. So that's my fade in the top 10 in the 10K range. Patrick Cantley's a very good driver of the golf ball right now. And I feel like he can separate himself in that department out of all those other 4. And my take on Xander is he's literally that built-in sensor in a vehicle that doesn't allow you to get too close to the car in front of you. Whenever he gets too close to the leaderboard, the top of the leaderboard, the brakes just come on automatically. He makes a double bogey on a par 5, kicks himself outside the top 20 after entering round 2 T5, and then storms up the leaderboard for a backdoor T3. That is literally Xander Schauffele's DNA. And I'm curious as to which round he does it this week. So I think there's always a live betting opportunity for him once he ejects to come storming back up the board. And I was quite mad at myself for not getting a top 20 when it was plus money after round 2.
This tournament also, just to look at this specific event, there's always been added pressure on him. Like, he started very slow in his career, and he's ramped it up the last couple of years with 3 finishes inside the top 34, but that continues to be his problem for whatever reason. That, like, I think he's supremely talented. I think Cantley's supremely talented. Like, those are the 2 guys that are always skyrocketing on my model, and they expect more wins than they get, but I don't know. They just don't put the pieces together enough. And that's kind of one of the reasons why too. And it doesn't mean that they don't win this golf tournament, but I think at that price, they're just unbettable commodities.
Yeah, they are. And because, between the 3 of them, Colin won the Zozo, whoop-de-doo, like you beat like a bunch of Corn Ferry Tour guys maybe, and a few other Xanders that were not even in contention that week. So there's no there's win equity, but there's also no recent win equity, if you know what I'm saying. Like, these guys aren't closers like Max, but currently Max, is in a world of whatever situations. Anyway, let's get out of the top 10 there and kind of dive into these guys just sitting in the 9K range where there's some really interesting dudes. I want to chat to you about Ludwig Aubert, who we've seen Spence just 2 really bad tournaments out in Hawaii. Maybe he's just not a fan of Hawaii. But prior to that, obviously the RSM, he just scorched earth went. I can't even speak the right words in order there because of how well he played and then how poorly he played at Hawaii. Now we go to a course that, if you think about John Rahm and why he succeeded here when he was playing his best golf, it's because that driver was going far and straight. And that's what Aubert does. Now, the iron play not necessarily as good as John Rahm's, but he's not a very good wedge player either. If you take a look at his wedge numbers, it's not necessarily the best out of all the buckets. So the further away he gets, the better he plays. And it makes a lot of sense. He's very powerful. So this week, I'm okay going back to him at $9,900 with Aubert. I'm kind of curious as to where you think the market's going and what your kind of take is on him.
I think this is one of those prototypical venues for him where you would expect him to find success. He's able to use his driver. My proximity numbers sort of liked him for this event. So there's a lot of interesting qualities. I guess the one downside, if you're looking for a reason as an outright bet, and that's why I haven't gotten there as of this moment right now, it is his first appearance. If we're ramping up course history, I guess that's somewhat of a concern, but talented golfers can win anywhere in the world. I think this is a unique spot for him. I wish this number was a little bit more than we had it right now. If we could start, I don't know if you have it up in front of you right now, Byron. I'm bringing it up, but what is the best price on him in the market?
I think it's been drifting towards, I think I saw a 26 out there today. I'm pulling it up right now for us, but it's 22 on FanDuel right now.
If you could get me up into, I think 22 is really close to being able to punch a ticket. If you could get me up into 25, I think that would probably be a bet for me.
Yeah. he's also been one of these guys like Xander. He's developing a bit of that situation where he has that, like his Saturday rounds of golf are atrocious. I don't know if they don't have Saturdays in Denmark or Sweden or wherever he's from, but he doesn't play well on Saturdays. Or if it's like, like you're not allowed to play golf on Saturdays over there, but he can't get it together on a Saturday. Even when he's not in contention, you'd expect the pressure to be off, and he still makes the cut, and he just kind of sticks around on Saturdays. I don't know. It's a very random stat about him, but 25-1, you say, huh?
Well, there's a lot of qualities about him, like number one in my model in weighted tee to green, number one in my model in weighted scoring. He was inside the top 10 in par 4 scoring on both the North and the South. He has the ability to score on any of these holes. Like, I think 22-1 is very interesting. I like, that's probably the first real consideration for me that I have been having the entire week. And I'm hoping that it continues to drift up. And it doesn't seem like people are actively betting him because of the lack of course history. And really, on top of that, the current form that he's had to begin the season so far, it hasn't necessarily been the Ludwig Aubert that we saw when he stormed the PGA Tour in the end of 2023. So I'm actively sitting back and waiting to see where that number gets to. And if it can continue to drift, I think that might be an interesting buy-in opportunity. But I do think 22-1 is a fair price to at least start considering.
Yeah, I agree. And I think once we start getting to the 25, I mean, that's double what we've seen him come out at in ridiculous fields. I mean, what was he at Kapalua? I think he was 12 or 14-1.
I think so.
In the Tournament of Champions with Scotty Scheffler and all these other guys too. Now we've got a few of them back in the mix here, but no Scotty, and also don't ever play Scotty at a putting contest. So that's the fun situation there. And it's kind of curious. So let's kind of transition from Ludwig, and I think I'm going to make him my gourmet play above the 8K range, where it seems like the recent form has kind of let him down a little bit, but I'm willing to go to this guy at $9,900. I can totally see him ball striking this course to death. And, just having we are like 3 tournaments away from when he went scorched earth at the RSM.
Yeah.
That's 8 rounds of golf away, and we're treating him like he's completely broken. We've seen 2 bad rounds of golf on a foreign continent. Maybe Saturday golf in Hawaii is like his optimal worst case scenario, right? So I'm expecting him to kind of bounce back. He's back in American soil and playing some West Coast golf. So at $9,900, $9,700, I'm willing to go to Aubert, just based off the long-term metrics that we've seen. And I understand it's a bigger field, but this course is built for him. So he's my guy above 8K that I really, really like as an expensive price tag that I'm going to be willing to stomach. What about you, buddy?
I mean, this is a boring answer. I'll probably give the same answer as you. I wish the Gala wasn't so popular. That has just caught so much steam at this point, and rightfully so. We both have outright tickets on him. I know that. You got a better price than I did. Mine just, everything just was too late.
It's okay, my bud. Sometimes the worst price is going to be the reason it hits, right? Because just that's the way the world works. And I'm looking forward to Sahith this week. I think people don't quite realize, dude, Sahith Theegala in this field, 37th off the tee over the last 24 rounds. Everyone's been saying, doesn't quite have the driving capabilities at this venue, but he's been gaining a lot of strokes not a lot of strokes, but been gaining off the tee repeatedly for an extended period of time. And it's part of the reason why he won at the 40 net, because he wasn't necessarily like that bad off the tee. He's been way worse before, but he's looking solid now. So I think he's got the length to handle this golf course anyway. And he's going to be completely fine. The rest of his game is, I don't know if you saw my Farmers Only ad about him, but once his ball's on the ground, he likes to party. So I think it's going to be quite interesting to see what he gets up to here at the Torrey Pines golf course. So where he's played very well. I think the 2 times he started, it's been top 25 and a T4. So lots to like from Sahith. He's a definite cash play, I would say, right?
Great cash game play. And I want to talk about the question that Ian just asked for a second, because it's actually into a golfer that I wanted to talk about also. And it did affect my model ever so slightly. I mean, we're talking about a 7,700 yard South venue where you're going to need distance. And I think that's where a guy like Aubert obviously takes a big jump in the model. Like the more that I run things for distance, I'm curious to get your takes on a golfer here. And I'm not so sure what I want to do with him yet. I think he's going to be an interesting DFS play. Couldn't necessarily get to him on the number just because there were some downside qualities that I saw. But do you have any thoughts on Højgaard? I mean, if we're looking for extra distance here, he possesses that quality. It's going to be a golfer that hasn't seen the course. The around the green game leaves a lot to be desired at times. But Højgaard is the name that keeps popping up for me as like, if he's going to be, I mean, I don't know what he'll end up going off at, but if he ends up going off at sub 10%, that kind of feels like the slate breaking upside that maybe nobody's going to get to where he has the qualities to find success.
Well, that's just the thing. You know, we're going to have a few of these DP World Tour guys showing up now that the Dubai courses are kind of ending their rotation over there. And we're getting like Ryan Fox and those guys coming in. So Højgaard is going to be a very interesting situation. And he's basically, I want to say, a Minwoo Lee without the short game. Sure. You know, like, and I think this kind of a venue suits his game perfectly. And how I kind of imagine these guys, you know, like for us as amateur golfers, you know, that aren't winning the Amex, when we go and play on a wet golf course, it's not necessarily that beneficial to us because we're not getting roll. It makes it longer. And just for us, a longer golf course doesn't work. But isn't Torrey's defense like you coming out the rough, which I understand it's kind of a double-edged sword here because the rough's going to be thicker because it's going to be slightly wetter, but also the greens are going to be softer because they've been rained on, right? So the greens are going to be way more receptive coming out of the rough. So if you can bomb it down there and come in with a high lofted club, don't even have to have all that spin on your golf ball to keep it on the green. So I definitely think a wet golf course is going to promote better scoring, particularly for the guys that can bomb and gouge at the best. And I think the softer greens are going to be way more receptive. And it's not Bay Hill-esque where it's like completely like you're playing in a Flintstones cartoon, but I think they're still pretty hard greens around this golf course, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, they're firm, fast POA surface at the south, at least. The north is a lot more receptive on a good day with it. And then it's going to probably even be better than a good day if we have wet conditions out there. But I think that even more so goes back to my thought process of why you need to score on the north when you get the opportunity over the first 2 days. Because I don't know what the projected weather forecast looks like right now for the weekend. There may be rain in the forecast the entire time, but I do think it will naturally speed up a little bit as the event goes on. I mean, that happens every golf tournament, even when it's still raining. So
yeah, it looks pretty sunny. I don't see too much rain currently. Just obviously that marine layer going to be a bother all kind of week long kind of thing. So nothing too crazy, but I definitely think we could expect scores to be lower. I know, you know, that's my take at least. So maybe that medium scoring can kind of move it closer to the easy side of things. So we'll see what cooks there. Spence, I know your model's been in absolute chaos. So what I decided to do was take my model and build a Minwoo Lee model. So I always preach that ownership is king. I mean, approach play is king. Ownership also kind of being king in DFS, but approach play is always king. And I typically have about 30 to 40%, depending on the course, of approach play. All the various good shots and crap like that. I took all of that out. So I took 35% of approach play out of the model and put around the green play. I put driving and I put putting and a little bit of extra bogey avoidance. So if you want to see what I came up with, I got him to second. Do you want to guess who, if you take approach play out entirely, who is first in the Minwoo Lee model?
Let me bring this up. I mean, so
I will give you a clue. Sungjae Im sits fourth.
Well, my guess that I would have given, first of all, cannot actually be the answer now because I know what you think about Max Homa. I'm going to say Jason Day.
Ooh, J Day's ninth, but it's Patrick Cantley, and it's a substantial lead. It's almost a full power ranking point more. You know, like the difference between Cantley and Minwoo in the Minwoo Lee model is almost the same as Minwoo and Taylor Montgomery. You know, so that's the kind of difference. Montgomery and J Day sitting here in 8th and 9th. So it's really interesting to get him to second in that department. I think, I have an outright on him this week. I'm really looking forward to, I know we mentioned hoping he didn't have like an incredible Amex, like he didn't really rival for the lead or anything. And we got a 30 this morning, 28s, 25s, whatever. I'm loving Minwoo's opportunity at this golf course. I think just if we're speaking about bombing gouging and just getting it done in that department, he's always been the guy that when I have my model and matchups and stuff, it always wants to target him because his approach play is so bad. But I'm kind of curious as to Minwoo's all the way down to, his number has plummeted. And that's the thing. The market has moved so much in one day, even with us starting on Wednesday. Like imagine this stuff started on a Wednesday, but Thursday. So curious as to your take on Minwoo, Spence.
I gave Minwoo some positive regression with his approach play. I wanted to see what I could turn him into also based off of that. He got up to 8th in my model when I did that. I didn't go like completely out of my model, so it's still sitting there and weighing him down a little bit. But the distance, the par 5 scoring, like the around the green game, the scrambling that he possesses, it's all elite.
Yeah. Elite. Elite stuff, dude.
I don't love I don't love the number at 20-1 now. That's too low. I understand the markets are trying and the books are trying to protect themselves, and you don't want to have like every single ticket. Like when I finally got on to Twitter today after my whole model and everything doing that, all I saw was Minwoo Lee over and over again on every single person's card. And I understand why, but it reaches a point where it's like the market has removed all the value from the price.
Yeah, it really has. And it's kind of crazy. So Casey in the chat just saying that it's 20-1 without Cantley, Homer, and Xander. So to me, I've always preached, I don't care. Like I would take the better number, but Homer's in there. So maybe that provides some win equity omission. Whereas the other two to me just seem like they're just space cadets kind of just plodding along and filling up the top 10. But that's my opinion. I'll always have some bold takes. I said that if Sam Burns finds himself in the mix, I'm almost certain the guy will close, and then he goes and does the Burger King ad, double, whopper on the freaking final 2 holes there, and just lets the Ami win it. So that's the situation we're all dealing with in the current PGA market. And the next outright winner we all hit here is going to be the first one of the year, and it's going to be like end of January. So it's going to be quite crazy as a golf betting community. So it's been a really weird start to the year. Let's scoot on down into the 8Ks here. And kind of I know we're just kind of doing a little different than normal, but it's a different week and it's shorter week. So we're going to just do our thing. Ian's asking you about Hideki at 65-1. I'm going to say, I just don't see Hideki winning a golf tournament soon either, but I do see him play much better on this kind of a golf course. He hasn't really shown any propensity to play good golf in recent weeks. And it's just the golf course suits him perfectly, just like it does Shane Lowry. To me, Hideki and Shane Lowry are basically the same exact person. One's from Japan, one's from Ireland. If they had a love child, they would be quite a conservative, very good major golf player, not a birdie fest kind of thing. So I'm kind of leaning into both of them this week. And Shane Lowry, in my opinion, is a much cheaper version of Hideki this week at $7,900. I don't know what Shane Lowry's outright market is, but neither of them seem like they're winners to me currently. And I'm out on their upside to win a tournament, but I like their chance to hang around the top of the leaderboard inside the top 20.
You could sell me on a top 10 or a top 20 with Hideki. I'm probably still going to be out on Lowry. I don't think this is quite as bad of a course fit as it was last week. I wouldn't be shocked if he bounced back, but between those two, I would take Hideki.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, he's aptly priced then in that department. So kind of interesting. Let's go from 2 twins to another pair of twins, the injury twins, the ambulance brigade over here. Daniel Berger and Will Zalatoris at 81 and 8,000 flat. The models aren't going to tell you anything about Berger because that burger's stale. It's old. The buns are crispy, but played some solid golf. I lost a Billy Horschel matchup against Daniel Berger last week. I did not see that coming, and I ate a burger. So it hit me in the face, and it was brutal. Kind of curious as to which one you'd pick and which way you're leaning.
I have Daniel Berger in that FSGA season-long golf league, and I started him last week.
Oh, nice. Good.
Yeah, so that was great. That was a positive thing. I mean, that's also because every player of mine plays on the DP
World Tour.
Yeah, I mean, I had Rory and Fleetwood and Hatton and Højgaard and Moronk and Fox, and all of a sudden, a lot of those guys are going to be making starts
that
for me.
Florida swing is going to be mean, buddy. You're going to be ripping through that field. So
yeah, so I kind of think that it was the ideal spot for Berger to come back to if he was going to enter a tournament. Put him at a birdie fest. It's going to help him a lot in those areas. I worry more about him here. Right now, I see 7% ownership. I mean, that's not a ton, but I'm probably going to be out this week. My model, from what I have statistically on him, likes him, but it's also pulling data from years ago, and I don't know what it's pulling on the back end on the other stuff of it, but yeah.
Okay, Willie Z, I think we're starting to see a bit of progression. I think he played some solid golf all 4 days at a venue that I don't think typically suits his style of play. I think he's a skinnier version of Shane Lowry, much skinnier. And I think, these kind of courses where you can just lean into the ball striking really kind of pays dividends. So I'm kind of curious as to what you're going to feel with Willie Z at 8K flat.
This is, by the way, where the sports books have gotten they're so much more like strategical in the matchups that they give. 5 years ago, they would give Zalatoris in this spot and put him against Xander and make Xander like -120. Yeah. And it would be one of those hammer spots where it's like 2 units. It's the play of the year for me. I'm going to be hammering that spot over and over and over again. Now they don't know what to do. It's just Zalatoris versus Berger every single week, every single in-tournament matchup, every single pre-tournament matchup. It's like, we don't know where to put these two. We don't know what to do with them. Like, figure it out. Like, go have your way with it. But I think if I'm looking for actual upside here and trying to figure out which way I want to go, I would rather take Zalatoris. I agree. I mean, the course history here has been phenomenal with 2 top 7 finishes. I do think that the putting stroke is always the concern, and things can get really wrong on POA. I mean, that's at least something worth noting. And if things go south, they can go south fast. And the one positive is for whatever this is worth, I did run strokes gained putting on fast POA in my model. He was a positive climber for me, so he's better on a fast surface, which I think you could see that a little bit. I mean, one of the things about Zalatoris that my model liked about him at his best was his 3-putt avoidance. Like, he didn't necessarily make putts from 5 to 10 feet, but he would put himself with a lot of birdie making opportunities, and he never really posted that many big numbers because he was always kind of on the green and 2-putting once he got on there. He's just maybe not making as many putts, but creating a lot of opportunities in the process. This is the type of venue, like, this is how a Zalatoris, like, Hideki won the Masters kind of based off of this general strategy. Put him on fast greens, don't create 3 putts, be able to ball strike, and you win a golf tournament. Like, not quite the same course here, but very similar mentality of like, put him on a fast green, be able to ball strike, keep down that 3-putt percentage number. I don't know if I necessarily think he's going to win. It might still be too early back into the mix for him, but we're starting to see some of those positive trends that you're hoping for if you're a Willie Z supporter.
We are. That's a very good question on Aubert with the POA experience. He played college golf. I'm sure he played a lot of college golf, probably on the West Coast at some point. I'm completely making that up as an assumption. I can't tell you exactly where he played, but he was at Texas Tech. So they must have played against like Cal and Stanford, all those places out west there at some point. So I'm not too concerned about that. And his putting is fine. Like, it's not like I'm too concerned about it. He can win this tournament in Luke List style, where he just goes and ball strikes it to death and does neutral on the greens. Speaking of, I pulled up all-time off-the-tee numbers at this venue for guys with more than 4 rounds of golf. So you had to play at least 5 rounds of golf. We've got John Rahm sitting in second all-time, averaging 1.08 strokes off the tee per round. Cameron Champ, 1.39 strokes off the tee per round around Torrey Pines South in 11 rounds. Incredible stuff there. And then Luke List, third all-time, just shy of 1 stroke at 0.96 in 19 rounds of golf. And to me, that is just starting on first base, maybe rounding on second, if you ask me. Like, I looked at Rory's stat line from when he won in Dubai. His top gaining metric was off the tee. Like, it's the most consistent. Like, I know all the data guys love off the tee numbers because your ball is on a tee. It's not in a bad lie. It's not in an uneven lie. You can tee it up exactly how you want it, and it's predictable as a golf metric comes. If you're going to tell me Luke List is going to gain a shot on the field every single round he plays, and we've seen the putter kind of figure itself out on this course before and recently, his ball striking numbers on approach have been gaining over a stroke per round over the last few rounds coming into this week. So we can see Luke List go bananas this week, and I grabbed him at 90-1 on Bet Rivers this morning. So I'm assuming there's 70s out there at this point, but Luke List is sitting where, Spence? But while I'm looking him up, let me know what you think about him. There's 80s, and yeah, he's still an 80 out there on Bet Rivers. So you can go and enhance that to a 90 if you wanted to.
I spent an entire fall season fading Luke List over and over and over again. And
T20.
Just over and over. And it was one of those situations where I was having profitable golf tournaments and I was like dropping 2 or 3 units back on Luke List matchups just repeatedly.
Yeah.
This is the first event. And I didn't like him at the beginning. We're playing in one of those, I don't even know what we call it exactly, one of those reverse one and done contests. And I took Luke List at the Sony, trying to have somebody to miss the cut. He came in 66. So
basically,
yeah, I mean, that's pretty much a miscut there. I was happy with that finish. Yeah. This is the first tournament in a really long time that my model actually likes him. And it's understandable why. He has the distance. He brings in that long iron proximity that you're looking for. Top 15 of my model when you put him on a fast POA surface. I think there's a lot to like. I don't love the price tag on DraftKings because it's going to make him wildly popular. And the course history is kind of going to be indicative of why he is so popular. I wish they would have taken a stand with him of some sort and made him more in like the 8,800 range, but I don't think that was ever going to happen because even with all the form that he was bringing to the mix, this is about where his price tag was in tournaments that were, I mean, arguably worse than this. Like there were some events he was like 7,500 where the field wasn't even this good. So I do think he's priced up a little bit based off of that answer, even though I still think he's too low, but it's just, he's going to be very popular. I'm curious to see where we're at 24 hours from now when this starts getting closer, but you could tell me that he approaches, I don't know,
20%.
20%. And I mean, I'm going to believe it.
Yeah. I wouldn't be shocked at all because the guys around him are not necessarily going to instill any confidence in you in that early 7K range. Right. So can I ask you a question? I think this is an interesting thing because this isn't even a discussion of whether we're going to play Luke List or not play Luke List. I just want to throw a hypothetical out there for you. Yeah. Let's say you're trying to find a way to pivot and you're trying to find a different name to get to that is, let's say within, 8,000 to 7,500. It's kind of a weird way to run that. I should have gone the other way with it, but, are there a couple names that you would consider there? There's a couple names I really like down here. Bo Hassler, Adam Svensson, and I've been curious as to what your thoughts are on Christian Bezuidenhout, man. Like, I know I completely whiffed on him last week, thinking he could not get anywhere near the top of the leaderboard, and when he does, he typically goes backwards. Guy was playing like he was in South Africa. He's won multiple South African titles and stuff back home, and that clutch putt on 18, that's what I want to see from him. Like, he freaking made a big putt that could have potentially been to get him in a playoff. He knew that if the Ami behind him made bogey, that was a playoff putt, and he made it. And it was a, 10, 12 footer. So clutch stuff from Bezzy. The iron play looked credible. It was very nice to see. I'm just concerned that he doesn't have enough accuracy off the tee to overcome his distance issues. He's kind of like an Eric Cole type profile to me right now. And we know how we feel about Eric Cole, but it's interesting. So I'm kind of iffy on him, but Adam Svensson grades out remarkably well for me. I've got him sitting at 7th in my model, Spencer, and I know you're a big fan of Adam Svensson, even after he did you dirty in Hawaii. on that final hole. Speaking of which, Eric Cole bogeyed the final hole after entering the week on Sunday, T5. Bogey's the final hole of the tournament to finish T21. And that was my only placement bet I had, was a top 20 on Eric Cole. So this year, it's just been a bit of a rough start, but we're going to bounce back. We only spent 25 of the $100 last week, and thank God we did, because I could have easily seen myself losing all 100 of it. So glad I didn't. But Adam Svensson, I love his accuracy off the tee and his long iron ability. And he's pretty darn good from 5 to 15 feet. So there's a lot that the model likes about him, and I'm kind of curious as to your take.
Do you have any concerns? And maybe this is just a different player, different year. Do you have any concerns about the last 2 years for him at this course or these courses?
I don't think he entered the last 2 years as the 8th best ball striker in the field.
No, that's a fair argument to be had. I mean, I think that's a very similar answer to give for Bo Hostler. I think these are better players than you have seen in years past. And whether you want to bring it up on a data golf ranking or if you're running a model for it, like I'm including, 20% weight for course history here. And Svensson for me is 24th overall. He does have a little bit better upside. The safety goes down because of those miscuts, and Hostler gives a very similar answer for me. But I kind of thought that this, we'll call it mid to upper $7,000 range, had a lot of potential here of, you're going to have the popularity with a Taylor Pendrith. I understand why people are going to him. You're going to have the popularity with Luke List. I think that those two places make a lot of sense. But I also think that you have really interesting pivot potentials with Hostler and Svensson and Akshay and Ryan Fox even potentially. Ryan Fox graded well in my model, and maybe I went in and did a couple too many things with the way that I hand graded some of his numbers. But I mean, he was a top 30 caliber player for me. So I think there are potential routes to try to pivot, I guess, to answer my own question there. But that's what makes it so difficult. If some of these, like if Luke List is going to be 25% owned, I don't know. I think he's a better outright bet at that point. I'd rather bet him as a top 10.
Yeah, top 10 or top 20 and call it a day, I think, on Luke List. That's what I've been doing. I actually have a bookie that reached out to me, and I've been given some credit. So what I've been doing is just taking that money. The chalkiest guy that I've been fading in DFS, I just placed a top 20 bet on him. I've been making so much money, just making my money back on that department. So it's a little bit of a sneaky play there, but
it kind of goes to show, by the way, I don't mean to interrupt you. It kind of goes to show how much sharper the industry is as a whole right now, that you're kind of just using that strategy and it's working in the bets that you're making. And that's what's so much more challenging about it for DFS now is that, like, 5 years ago, it was the Wild West. People were doing outrageous things every single week. I remember there were times where, like, you would play a cash game build. And this isn't even just for golf, by the way. This is for like any of the sports. Like NBA was a huge one. Yeah. And people would have players in their lineup that weren't even actively playing that night or playing in that event who had pulled out. And now it's a lot more advanced. There's people there's a lot of great content that's being put out there. There's a lot of great models that you can find. Like you can get yours in my model. You can get models on other sites. There's stats galore out there that can be found, but there's good information to be had. And I think it always comes down to the answer that we give on this show is it comes down to game selection and contest selection. What Luke List is in one contest is playable, where in another contest that may be a different route you want to go. I think in single entry cash games, like those are very savvy ways to use Luke List. I think when you start talking about those mass field, 50,000 person contests, I don't know if Luke List is exactly where I want to be in that spot.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you want to get 2x the field, you got to probably get close to 40%, right? Like Casey's saying over here. So it's a really interesting
to be honest with you, and this is like my perspective on it. If I was going to play Luke List, I would probably go like 75%. Like I want to be more than 2x at that point. If I'm going to put that into my lineup, I want it to be to where like Luke List actually makes an impact for me. That's one of the ways that I go about it, to where if I'm going to play a really chalky player, I'm just going to go almost like click all in on it, like give or take on it.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if you just kind of just checkmate the field in that department then, right? Essentially. And, I feel like if he's that chalky with that good of an off the tee game at this venue, Lord help us, but I feel like that's one of the safer plays you can make, right? Like
that's why the chalk keeps hitting every single week, and that's what's become so difficult. He's inside the top 12 of my model for safety. Like that's a disaster to be trying to fade that at a $7,800 price tag. I mean, maybe that's even the route with it. You just literally like punch it into every single lineup and you're so over the field with it, then that's the route that you take. But when you go that route, I mean, it's a very boom or bust nature, but that's more of how I'm trying to play MME contests.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. And for what it's worth, Luke List is plus 250 for a top 20. So, I mean, that's kind of crazy too. You know, I feel like that's a really nice number on him for a top 20. I want to get back to Adam Svensson real quick for a top 20 or top 40 bet. The model kicked him out as a top 20 bet because I have him as my 7th best golfer. He only does the top 20s about 24% of the time. It gave it like a plus 250 number, which is around about 20% probability. I prefer to go. I'm kind of curious as to where you go with this, Spence, because I've decided to take the plus 105 for a top 40, which he does 52% of the time in his last 29 starts. I feel like I don't want to risk the fact, like I know that the model really likes him, but I don't see him as a typical top 20 golfer. I see him as going to make the cut, going to finish top 30 kind of thing. I like the safety. Should I approach? I'm going to go with the plus 105 unless you really convince me to go plus 250. But I'm kind of curious as to your thought process in a situation like that.
For me, and this is a route that has landed me on Steven Yeager a million times and never really worked out the way that I wanted to because he comes in 37th place and my top 10 or top 20 tickets don't get punched as frequently with it. But I'm always trying to find a way with these golfers that I do have that boom or bust grade on. And Svensson has that grade for me just because of the course history that he's bringing here. I always try to shoot it up the model for that reason and have less exposure on the play. Obviously, you're going to be much more likely to hit. It's built into the odds there for a top 40. I just think from the exposure that I would be willing to take on for a wager like that, I would rather shoot it up into the top 20 zone. But that's just how I view situations like that. It's a little bit different than most people.
So you're saying you'll take on less exposure to win the same amount as you would have bet to win a top 40 bet. To say win 1 unit back, you'd bet only a third, right? Essentially, or so, versus the full 1-to-1. Whereas me, the way I've typically always bet is I always just lay 1 unit. And I've never really it's just been across the board. I always bet 1 unit. Like I've laid a full unit on Sam Ryder at plus 450 to finish top 20 at the RSM and Adam Svensson top 40 plus 100. You know, I'll bet the same amount. And I don't know why, but I just feel like I take advantage of the edge in that way. But just with Svensson, I've got a weird gut feeling that the top 40 is the way I want to kind of roll. Maybe I've got some Sony PTSD from you over there. So we've got some interesting questions here from Casey too. Sorry to bring that up, Spence. It's been 2 weeks though. How many do you normally keep in your player pool? So that kind of also depends, obviously, as how many guys you've got, like contents and stuff. I put about 23 guys, 29 guys in my 150 lineups, kind of try and keep it below 30. And I get very aggressive. You know, I put like 22% Chan Kim last week, which really helped. Not at all, because Billy Horschel was in a third of my lineups, you know, so I went way too aggressive in that department, but typically about 30 guys or so for my 150. I'm kind of curious as to what your answer is.
Same for me. It's usually somewhere between 20 to 30 for 150. Probably more so towards that 25-ish number is kind of where I'm ideally trying to land. There's some weeks where I can't cut the player pool down quite as much. And I might have exposure that on golfers that there's just so many long shots. And like when you get stuck in that $6,000 range and you're kind of super exposed to the top with a lot of like, you know, for example, if I have like 50% Patrick Cantlay on a week and the $6,000 range has a bunch of long shots that are like sub 1% owned, and I don't necessarily have a massive take, I'd be more inclined to then add a couple names down there. But I would say just as a safe answer, they're about 25.
Yeah, give or take. And it's variability, right? Like if you have a contest with tons of birdies, probably put a few more guys in your player pool. You know, if you got a bit more sticky kind of a wicket like this, like we say back in South Africa, go a little less guys, you know, because you kind of want to, the ownership's going to conglomerate a lot more, I think, in a course history venue and tournament than a birdie fest. Awesome question here from my man T Dak over there at what the hell is the place? He writes for a cool website. They got all their bets in there. But it's Saturday night, and one of these dudes finished runner-up. Which one was it? Austin Eckroat, Kevin Yu, Ryo Hisatsuni, or Sam Ryder? You go first, Spencer.
I feel like I know where you're going to go, and my model would technically go for the same answer. I'm going to give a different name here, though. At least I think I'm going with a different name than you. I'm going to go with Austin Eckroat.
Okay, why?
I assume you're going to take Sam Ryder.
Yeah, I would definitely go with Sam Ryder.
My model also agrees with that answer. I don't know. There's a lot of upside numbers in my model when I was running things that it liked on Eckroat this week. Massive climber for me, an expected tee to green performance here versus a standard course. Put him into the top 30 in that area. There was another stat here. Let me find it. Some of the off the tee stuff also had massive gains for me in some of the projections. And then obviously when we talk about the long iron proximity inside of the top 35, pretty much from any of the extended distances I was looking at. So I'm going to say him. Ryder has always been, I cannot seem to get him right.
Outside that top 20 that I cashing him for the RSM, he finally came through. It was kind of inevitably it happened, like he kept going back and back and back, and the plus 400 came through eventually. But that's the thing with him. Like, he's been showing this incredible iron play where at one point last year, if you took like a 16 round sample size, only Victor Hovland had gained more strokes on approach than Sam Ryder. And at some point to start the year of 2023, I think he was leading the PGA Tour for the first half of the year in putting. Yeah. So the guy's just got he can just become anybody he wants. He can just morph into the best statistical player in any sort of category. And it kind of is intriguing in that department. Like, if that all comes together out of nowhere, he's going to win a tournament, but it seems like he just kind of can't keep it together for 4 rounds, which is very, very interesting. And that was a great question. I think also, I know you and I both have Kevin Yu in our model that we always have to tap his stuff down. It's like a bad pitch mark. We just keep pounding that thing down on the green because Kevin Yu's numbers just keep telling us he's going to finish inside the top 10. And then finally, after like a year's worth of stuff, he finally shows up and just goes nuclear on Sunday to finish inside the top 5 there at the Amex. So very good set of guys. I mean, I think if you played all 4 of those dudes in lineups, I mean, it's solid. Rio is also really good.
How would you power rank the 4?
Ooh, I'm not even going to go off my model. I'm just going to answer this completely off the cuff here and just say Sam Ryder, Ryo Hisatsuni, Kevin Yu, Austin Eckroat. I don't know. I can't get over how bad Austin's putting is, right? It's the short game stuff it's a little concerning for him typically, but it's just a bad bias I have. Him and Alex Smalley both. How would you rank him?
I will say Eckroat, Ryder, Rio, Kevin Yu.
Okay. So Kevin Yu all the way down there. Mr. Volatile, not getting much love from Spence. I think he's had his one tournament of the year. And kind of, yeah. Darbo knows. I hate Austin Eckroat. We were on the stream on Sunday night, and I definitely gave Darbo a very difficult time about how I don't really like him. So I have to stick to my guns in that department. And obviously, Darbo agrees with Spencer, obviously. Okay, cool. So we haven't really dived into the 6Ks much. Let's kind of do that. We've got a guy that's called Joseph Bramlett, which I adore. I was really looking to kind of lean into him in one way or another. And the model, obviously not a big I mean, I've got him 33rd for a guy that's $6,800, right? And it's just got to do with the off the tee stuff. It's got great course history here. Everyone's going to be playing him. He's basically the Luke List of the 6K range, I would say. And similar profile. And just what do you do with Joseph Bramlett?
I would like to see where the ownership comes in. So if I'm looking here right now, just as an early projection on it, he would be, not going to count all the way down, but probably one of the ways I run it is ownership versus my model. So he'd be one of the, let's just call it 15, 20 most inflated golfer in the ownership that you're getting for the potential that you're getting for the price. I think that's the one thing I dislike about him outside of that, he's a top 50 player for me inside of my sheet. But there are some spots for me in the $6,000 range that one of them is going to come with popularity also, and one of them will probably be a 0.5% owned. But can I throw the popular one out to get your opinion, and we'll go from there?
Yeah, let's go. This is what we're here for.
Thoughts on Jonathan Vegas?
I love him. I was taking a look at the approach stuff when I was doing this earlier, Max, and I think Jonathan Vegas was like way up there as well in like, just, he can just be electric on the ball striking front, man. And he's come back, and I think, how popular do you think he's going to be? I haven't pulled in any ownership, but I can't imagine, like, he's only come back 1 or 2 tournaments. It can't be through the roof.
I mean, I see 5% right now. That's going to update by tomorrow. And not that that's a ton, but if you're looking at these $6,000 golfers, for me, that would make him the second most popular right now.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think about it, he's also, again, one of these guys that's just going to be starting, like, for a $6,000 golfer, starting on first base off the tee. Like, dude, it's just incredible. I think actually I was lying about he's on that list of Luke List and Cam Champ and John Rahm. He's sitting there in 15th all time in strokes gained around this golf course.
Okay, so this is a little bit different than the Svensson answer that we just talked about, but this is kind of going to tap into my mentality on these bets more so. I think Vegas, for obvious reasons, I think he missed the cut on the number last week, and he had the injury concerns at the end of last year. But
yeah,
let's say, I don't even know what the top 40 number is. You can tell me what the price is on there if you have it in front of you. But I bet him to come top 10 at 20-1. Like, that's the type of exposure I am looking for. Like, I'll shoot for the upside. If it hits, wonderful. That'll give me a winning week, I'm sure, at the end of it. And if not, and he misses the cut and he gives you one of those Jonathan Vegas performances where he doesn't put it together, I can live with that.
I love that bet, Spence. You know, like, the risk and reward is perfectly manageable there, right? It's not like you're betting him top 20 for a plus 200 kind of bet. So top 10, and that's exactly how he can land up, you know, with the way he hits the golf ball. So wet, soft conditions, Jonathan Vegas, let's go, you know. And I think, Casey, what we really liked about Joseph Bramlett, and Joseph Bramlett's plus 700 for a top 20 and plus 240 for a top 40, you know, for a guy that's been pretty stellar around this golf course. So I think that plus 700 is very appetizing to me for Joseph Bramlett as well, because just the fact that you're getting that, like, a 7-1 number on a guy that can also kind of pull up a Johnny Vegas situation seems like an interesting avenue to go down there.
I think that top 40 number, I mean, I know that's kind of the reverse of all the answers I keep giving, but I think that's a good price on him.
Yeah. I know our main man Sia's on Joseph Bramlett at that number too. So that's kind of why I kind of didn't quite go to the top 40. But if we're all going to be in agreement, I think that's a very solid situation to be in, right? Because if you take a look at what Joseph Bramlett's been up to, he finishes top 40 a lot more than he does, you know. But actually, Spence, his top 40 rate is 30%. His top 20 rate is 25%.
That's interesting.
You know, so you're getting a 5% discrepancy there for triple the odds almost. So I might lean into that plus 700 and go with that. You know, I feel like why would we obviously agree on a situation that we've just discussed now? So, but I think we still like him as a good play. I'll lean into the 7.
Well, I mean, even if you look at what he's done at this course in the last 4 years, I guess based off of your answer that you're giving, it's 2 finishes inside the top 18, 2 finishes that were 45th and 67th. So you're either hitting it all or you're losing. I mean,
so exactly. So I'm in. All right, cool. So we're doing Adam Svensson plus 105 for a top 40 and Joseph Bramlett plus 700 for a top 20.
Yeah, I'm going to have to tell you on that one. I think that's a good call, Byron.
Yeah, I like it. And I love that I'm so happy I incorporated these percentages into my model where you can see, because you get a guy that gets ranked in your model, but you also need to know how he does historically. You know, like, you always think like Russell Marks does well, but he's a perennial outside the top 40. You know, like, you always think a top 40 bet's good on him, but he always finishes outside the top 40. So it's good to have that kind of a check system going in there. So we're kind of approaching the end of the show, yeah, Spence? 6K range. Any other random names? I'm kind of going to go back to Chan Kim. I don't know if he's a birdie fest kind of guy or what his situation is. He obviously, I think, actually, I'm going to lie to you. I'm not going back to Chan Kim. Looking at his Corn Ferry stuff, 16th in easy scoring in this field, and that's raw stats, 112th on like medium scoring. So I think last week was the time to play him. I think maybe I'll get off him this week again. Who do you like in the 6K range?
I guess I'll get burned again by a player that I bet to come top 40 last week at plus 200 who missed the cut. I kind of tend to think that this is a better course fit for him. Any love for Robert McIntyre?
He's a Shane Lowry, Hideki Matsuyama kind of guy. I love what he can get up to on more difficult golf courses. He's scrappy. He's good off the tee and scrappy. So I don't see him making tons and tons of birdies, but I can see him absolutely dominating par fives, which we'll have 16 of if he makes the cut, and he's affordable. So I like him.
Is there a way that you would rather go? And I'll ask you this since we keep talking about these discussions. Let's just say you have two choices here and you have to pick one. It can't just be pass.
Okay.
Joseph Bramlett, top 10, 22-1. Joseph Bramlett, top 20. I mean, we'll call it plus 750 because that book pays ties in full.
Okay. So
we'll go that route with it.
I'm going to go with the top 20. It just seems, if I take a look at Bramlett's top 10 rate, it's 4%. So what's 20-1? 5% hit rate, essentially. Whereas the T25 is he's doing it one every 4 rounds for the top 20. So I'll do the top 20 bet still.
Perfect
on him. Perfect. I got one for you, 6K, and I believe Joel is on him too. Michael Kim, $7,300. Twitter god himself, LMAO. Dude, I was deep diving Michael Kim on my research show last night, and it might have actually been this morning because it was towards the end of the show. Michael Kim's numbers out of his strokes gained from 150 to 200 is 4th in this field. And his good shot rate from 200 plus is 8th. So he's an underrated iron player. He's not a good wedge player whatsoever. And this course kind of suits his game. I know Darbo was coming at me because this seems like a bit of a big golf course for him. But I feel like on the iron front, it's kind of suits his game even better than last week. I don't know, Spence. Michael Kim?
The one thing, I guess there's two things I dislike about him. Early ownership seems to be very popular. That's a negative. 139th in my model in strokes gain off the tee at long courses.
Okay.
Like that's kind of going to where the Darbo answer of like, this could just be too long for him. And I don't know if you saw this, Byron. Did you see how I lost that Sunday matchup of Ben Griffin versus Michael Kim?
Did you have Michael Kim?
No, I had Ben Griffin.
No.
Horrible.
What happened?
He was up. I mean, I don't know how many he was. I was checking my phone back and forth. Michael Kim ends up birding the last 3 holes. He birdies 5 of the last 7. Ben Griffin bogeys that. What is that? The 16th.
The 16th.
The easy par 5.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and it ends up losing by 1. And I'm like,
6 shots swing in the last 9 holes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude. I'm so sorry. Jeez, dude. That's the thing, man. I don't know how we were chatting over the weekend, 60% hit rate in these head-to-head matchups over in tournament, dude, which is incredible. It's absolutely incredible, Spencer. Like, I don't think people realize how good that is because for me, I prefer the week-long stuff because I went after Matt Kuchar and he goes and makes eagles on par 5s and shoots like one of the best rounds of the tournament for himself the day I choose him. You know, like he's been playing like complete shit the whole time and then one day I pick him, he fires up. So to me, that's just what drives me insane with those head-to-heads in tournament. But at a 60% clip, dude, that is, I don't know. Show me anyone that's better. I don't mean to like go off the top rope here, but that is like a really impressive number, man. So,
you know what's funny about it, Byron, is, and maybe this is just like the competitive streak in me, 60% through almost 1,000 plays is a ridiculous percentage. And it's not like I'm laying minus 200 juice. I mean, we're talking about somewhere between most of the plays are somewhere usually between plus 120 to minus 120, give or take in that range with it. I am still so competitive that regardless, I had gone 4-0 on head-to-heads before that. That play loses. I take things hard with it. And the funny thing about it is I had Keith Mitchell top 20, and he just completely storms up the board on Sunday. And I'm still sitting there upset that how could this head-to-head bet go south after I got lucky on the Keith Mitchell play. But I think that's kind of the betting mentality. It's like you remember the bad of it and some of the good that happens. Like, oh, well, Keith Mitchell was a good play. Of course he made a run at that. That was a deserved finish, which it really wasn't. That wasn't a bet I should have won.
No, but that's the thing about golf, man. You know, like I think Keith had a hole out early on as well. Like he just hit it in from the fairway.
That was a wild.
Yeah, it was some crazy stuff that happened on Sunday, man. So, but that's the nature of that tournament, right? We just kind of expect like holeouts, like multiple eagle holeouts in the final round of a golf tournament. You never see that kind of stuff. So for guys all sitting inside the top 20 as well, it wasn't just jabronis just playing at the back end of the field. So very interesting stuff. Should we wrap it up?
I think we should wrap it up.
Yes. I've had a blast. We could go, like we were starting to really start hitting our stride and just talk a whole bunch of nonsense and really have fun. But I love doing the show with you, Spencer. This is the 4th episode now. If you guys are still in the chat, hit that like button. Code NEW, friends. 30% off. I'll let Spencer talk about this to end out the show, but 30% off gets you $17.40 a month.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we talk about it every week, Byron. Like, we put so much effort into our work to try to help everybody out there with what we're doing. And if you like the information that you've heard, if you want to check out Byron's model, if you want to check out my model, Joe Nicely, Ian, Matt Miller, like we have a really, really deep team. And we're producing more and more content every single week. And it's one of those things where I do think it's one of the best values in the space. You're going to be able to get DFS answers, betting answers, one and done. We go through the entire gambit of what it is at the end of the day. So I hope you consider giving us support. We are always, as I said last week, more than willing to answer any question. We'll come on this show. It's not about subscribe to us and get the answers. We're going to give all the answers you guys want at the end of the day with it. But, I do think we have a lot of tools that can make you a better DFS player or a better bettor.
Absolutely. And I think, if you betting, call it $50 on outrights a week or whatever, the closing value that happened since this morning's picks to now is in the Discord. It's almost worth it, right? Because you're just saving that money organically by just being in the Discord and not reading my article that I'm going to come out with tomorrow morning, right? So which is a free article. So, I don't feel that pressured to have the correct odds in there, but the odds that I place are in the Discord first thing in the morning. So it's like just a great little community we're trying to build, and our team is starting to grow, and I feel like we've got a superstar team. So 30% off, code NEW, NEW, for $17.40 a month, friends. So, and if anything, just bet Spencer's head-to-head matchups, and I think that'll pay for itself in a complete and holistic way. So we will catch you guys next week. Good luck this week. Get all our stuff tomorrow. We're going to be dropping articles like crazy because this is content hell week, but we are here for it, and we're going to provide you the very best we can. So till next time, folks, we'll catch y'all on the flip side.